go. Lines in the sand, welcome to the front row. Real life hitting, everybody wanna know. When the spin get thick, who cuts through the chain? AK, David Drew stepping into the frame. Late nights, boots in the dirt. From the grind to the house, to the stove, to the grease stained shirts. Parents, pay fight for what's true. From the clinic to the warehouse, to your living room. Headlines screaming, but we ain't scared. Faith in our bones, yeah, we can't prepare. Culture war is unchanged. Where the real ones meet the rage. Where the truth cuts through the noise. Every voice on the stage. Culture war is unchanged. From the heartland to your brain. If you're tired of the script, we're here to break the chain.
We talk about pop culture, politics, news, current events, kind of whatever's going on and how it relates to us. So we're going to have an amazing time. Our co host AK is on special assignment today, so he will not be here today. But we do have my co host. I'm Drew Outstanding. I'm your local veteran in Minnesota here, adaptive sports in training, and yeah, overall consultant supporting veterans all over the place. So we got a couple really cool topics tonight. We got CNN admits that ICE deployment has helped out airport timelines. TSA has been wild with spring break and the partial government shutdown. Do we even know what a government shutdown is nowadays? And unfortunately, more airport news. Passengers recount horrific moments that Air Canada plane crashes into a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. And so the pilot was killed in that crash. And so we're going to talk about that. ICE has stepped up to helping TSA, as I mentioned about CNN mentioned that as well. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple different articles to get a good overall recount. And unfortunately, the man, the myth, the legend, Chuck Norris has passed away, or at least moved on. So he's in a different place right now. But yeah, chat, bring in all the Chuck Norris jokes you want. And then finally, Alan, I always mess up his name, Rickardson. So the big beefy guy played Aquaman and a few other things in the Tom Clancy and a few other things right now. So he's been getting into it in his neighborhood. So we'll talk about a few of those things too when it comes to culture. And then he's got some pop culture or some news takes as well. So yeah, I'll give it up to David, my other co-host. David, who are you? What do you do?
David Webster. I am our legal immigrant, also U.S. veteran, like my brother in arms over there, Drew. And I bring just the perspective of somebody who's came from the outside to coming into here. And I love being part of the conservative movement and pushing back against the false flag narrative about Christian Republicans, not wanting immigrants in the country or any of this other nonsense the left likes to throw. And I'm also a big nerd, big sci-fi, science fiction, all that stuff. My mother got me into like Star Trek and Star Wars when I was little. So I believe that as conservatives and as parts of members of this society, we should participate in culture, whether it's through films, music, TV shows. So some of these topics are going to be near and dear to my heart. And I'll have some different angles for that. And then I want to introduce everyone to our guest this evening. His name is Edward, but I've come to know him as Eddie. And I'm going to turn it over to him and have him introduce himself, give some of his stats, and in the second hour, we'll get to know him a little bit better.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew, and thank you, David, for having me on tonight. It's a privilege. I am an 18-year-old high school senior and PSEO student, so a college in high school student. I've been doing college for 3 years. I started a TPUSA chapter both at my college and high school, and I've been doing my best to become a political actor in Minnesota, getting involved both in Republican campaigns as well as the caucus process. So I've been elected a delegate to the Minnesota State Convention coming up in 2026 in May. That's a short summation of who I am and what I do.
That's excellent. No, yeah, you're on your way. We get younger people on the show that are just doing amazing things. So yeah, keep up the awesome work, and yeah, it's really cool to see next generations kind of taking it and running with it. We got our producer AM.
We're super excited. Oh, sorry, you're doing the AM shout out. I'll wait.
AM in the background, our producer. We had some technical difficulties, or at least some modifications to our intro. You got to see our faces at the beginning, but
shout out to AM.
What I learned from being in the Army, it's better to be on time and in a pretty crappy spot, than being late. So show up.
We adapt and overcome.
You can make modifications along the way. What are you going to say, David, before we get into the first topic?
Oh, well, I was just going to say about Eddie, with his age and how far he is, it's way further than I think you and I were at 18. So I'm excited to get his perspective on some of tonight's stories. But speaking of adapting and overcoming, which we were just talking about, which is something you and I are both accustomed to with our military careers, we are missing the third leg of the chair and I think you alluded to it earlier. AK is actually at a fundraising dinner tonight for one of the Republican Party congressional districts here in Minnesota. So that's exciting, and we wish him all the best. I'm sure they'll ask him to speak, and he'll kill it like he always does. So we're going to do our best to make the show still interesting and riveting in spite of not having him with us.
Exactly. Please like the show, the episode. Please subscribe. AK is awesome at promoting this when he's here. So please tag AK in all the stuff on X, on TikTok. I think he's big on the TikToks and Facebook, whatever generation you are, whatever your social media are. Please tag AK, Culture Warriors Unchained, and let's get into our first topic. It's been a lot of airport stuff lately. So, and I've been part of it too. I've been traveling around, or at least I've been in Florida lately. So our first topic is breaking from the post-millennial. CNN admits ICE deployment has helped cut airport wait times. So it comes after widespread travel disruptions caused by a partial government shutdown that the left TSA agents working without pay. Left TSA agents working without pay. So let's tune in. Is this a video? No, it's not a video. But yeah, CNN admits Monday that ICE agents deployed to assist the airport operations have helped reduce the long security lines at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, where wait times dropped to under an hour after days of chaos. Yeah, there's a video I was looking for.
Agents there, what have you been seeing them doing?
Finally, we can take a deep breath here. The numbers have dropped off. The lines are getting shorter. I think the average wait time now is under 40 minutes. So if you have a flight to catch today, it's a good time to come to Hartsfield-Jackson International. Talking about the ICE agents, you can see a few behind me right there. And then I'm going to walk you this direction, and you can see some more of them gathered over here. This is what they've been doing for the most part today, is doing the patrols around the airport, talking and gathering, not really helping the public in the sense of they're not taking tickets from anybody. They're not interacting with the public we've seen so far. They're not checking anyone's ID at the TSA.
Yeah, we'll just leave it right there. I'll just leave it right there. That was a good.
That doesn't feel like unbiased news or anything.
Well, yeah, that was actually pretty fair and balanced, I'd say. But no, it's been interesting. So yeah, a lot of airport news. Spring break is going on. This partial government shutdown, and yeah. So I was asked to go do some speaker training in Florida. So in Jacksonville, I went to there and helped out, learned some cool things. And then I was actually had a event that I did in Orlando. So it was pretty cool doing some event planning for some veterans. It coincided with MegaCon, some meetups. So it was cool. I could talk about that in an hour or two and give my update. But yeah, on the front end, I was delayed. Well, I was supposed to have a flight 10 a.m. last Sunday. That got completely canceled, moved to 6 a.m. on Monday morning. And luckily barely got out of Minneapolis with that snowstorm. But they put me into Atlanta, just where they were had that live video from, and I'm like, yeah, I recognize those cars and that stuff. And it's funny, they got those security camera balls that come right pretty much in front of your face, and I'm like, oh, this feels a little bit like a Minority Report, and looking at all of us. But anyways, I get stuck in Atlanta for about 12 hours, so that's why I missed the show last week. Made it safely and had a very good trip. But there are spring breakers, families, everyone doing all this kind of stuff. I've seen some TSA lines where they're wrapped into the parking lot, and yeah, it's been a little bit wild. David, what do you think about these TSA wait lines and anything airport related to that lately?
I think it's going to be a good overall because it's like they were talking about. It's reduced wait times, and they're filling in roles without necessarily stepping over what TSA is typically supposed to do with like ID checking and bag checking and things like that. So that I think that's ultimately a good thing. I also know that there's been some back and forth reporting on whether or not they're also conducting ICE operations in the airports. And some people have been happy about that. Some people haven't been. And there's been kind of mixed reports coming out of that with people's social media feeds talking about seeing ICE detaining people in the airport. My take on that is if we're catching them at the airport before they can get anywhere and do anything in country, I'm for it. I'm here. That's a good time. I mean, they've already got the detaining rooms. You know, TSA already has those booking rooms in the back where they detain people with suspicious travel circumstances or they have stuff in their bags they shouldn't have. So I'm all here for it. I'm not against that at all. It's you see that all the time in government where you'll have agents who are retasked from one thing to another, whether it's the air marshals helping the Secret Service out, filling in when they're shorthanded at certain things during campaign seasons where you have not enough Secret Service agents being able to go around the various states where the current president or the current political party in power may be, where they need security. So I'm all for this. I think it's efficient. What I am interested in is, Eddie, you were of that age of some of your peers, some of your friends probably did some spring breaking, did some traveling, got out of the cold of Minnesota since Mother Nature couldn't make up her mind about whether or not we were going to have warm weather or cold weather. What have you heard from within your, did anybody's travel get affected? Maybe did people's travel get better after, they were the TSA was backed up by ICE with the deployments happening?
Yeah, the people that I associate with, funnily enough, didn't actually travel out of state or interstate for spring break. Everyone had a staycation for spring break. Everyone kind of just chilled out as our semester is coming to a close, and many of us are graduating. And the same for my college associates. They didn't end up traveling, so the impact of travel delays was rather quiet in my circle. But either way, it's certainly unfortunate that this kind of interstate infrastructure has been negatively impacted by the federal Congress moving slowly and doing what it does.
Yeah, it's a lot of topics all kind of in one. I mean, it's that perfect storm of a lot of things are coming. The spring break, the government shutdown, and it all into once. It's tough to know kind of where to land on each of these, especially when you add in ICE. They had a big Minnesota kind of presence in the last couple months, and then and now that it looks like that kind of winded down, or at least not in the news right now. And yeah, it should be interesting. I'm on the side where I'm fine. I mean, they're all federal agents. I'd rather have not this big, I guess, government everywhere, unless there's a need for it. And it seems like absolutely right now there's a need, and that's how a government should be, in my opinion. It's like it shouldn't be everywhere at all times, but when there is a need, like we have right now with this, the border stuff, the ICE stuff, and just make it work, and then get out of here, go and do your thing, and let us kind of be as free as we can. But yeah, that's I know, David, you got a little bit more information on that one when it comes to
Yeah,
ICE
and
on ground news.
yeah, and I agree with you with like let's not overuse government, but we've talked about this on the show in the past where the whole existence of TSA really came out of 9/11, and we're still living in a post 9/11 world, and we're still dealing with radical Islam, and even the level of conflicts in lately even within the country have gone up, right? We had even like I think it was last episode or the episode before we reported on that shooting, with the individual who had a very specific name, and shouted a very specific phrase to a certain religion, and I think that we're not going to be getting rid of TSA, and if we don't have them, we need something to step into the place and make sure that at least our airports are secure. So I'm for it. I'm not a fan of it being like the final solution, but until we can get this stuff passed. But anyways, so the other thing I wanted to jump into here is the Trump on ground.news, which is one of the places that I use for getting my news because it likes to break down the left and the right's reporting based on different websites, different journalism organizations, and kind of give you a thorough breakdown of what's being said on which side. Pardon me. But also, chat, let us know if you've had your travel plans affected. So on Saturday, President Donald Trump announced that he would deploy ICE agents to assist TSA at U.S. airports before Monday amid the shutdown, saying ICE will do the job far better than ever done before. And funding for the Department of Homeland Security lapsed on the 14th, giving roughly 50,000 TSA employees unpaid or leaving them unpaid, and Democrats are withholding votes over ICE reform demands. TSA callouts reached 21.5% at Philadelphia International Airport on Saturday. DHS said at least 376 TSA employees quit, and Joe Shuker warned that we only have 3 manned exits in Philly. Unions representing flight attendants and other workers warned ICE deployment would distract TSA screeners and urged immediate pay, while DHS indicated hundreds of ICE officers could be sent to 14 airports. The House Committee on Homeland Security will be holding a hearing next week as signs of progress emerge between Democrats. The White House and Elon Musk offered to pay TSA salaries as well, which is incredible. And I want to point out, while I don't, I'm not an always Trump guy, right? I like to look at like what's getting results, and the one thing that's happening here is and the one thing that I want to highlight and make sure that we're focusing on is the SAVE Act, right? A lot House Democrats voted down the SAVE Act, which requires voter ID, and it also requires that you be a United States citizen to participate in our elections, which is the most common sense policy on earth. It shouldn't even have to be a bill. That should just be the standard, in my opinion. But he's using this as leverage now that they've refused to fund TSA. We don't have as many TSA employees. Now all of a sudden ICE has full access to airports, and they're the ones enforcing security there, and then also on the side conducting ICE operations as needed in the airports, which is a great catch-all. And I think now Democrats have to scramble to admit, oh, hey, we need to get this passed. And you have all these employees not getting paid. You have people quitting. I think that's fantastic. I think that's going to help us in the midterms the longer the Democrats hold out on this and don't give people, access to those employees so they can travel freely. I think those delays help us somewhat. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat that this is pushing negotiations. It's unfortunate that it has to be there, but like, it is what it is. Like, this is how things get changed. I wish it could be more single item bills and not this, huge big thing that people can just kind of shove stuff into. Like, we could just get the voter ID, that stuff all in one thing. But no, it kind of has to be that way. And Chuck Schumer has been the one that's been, pushing this like, well, I want to pay them just by themselves and not have it be connected to voter ID. But that's not what we're doing here. They're shutting down the government because they can't pass this thing. Like, and it goes back and forth. It's this weird tug of war kind of thing, and you can find whoever you want to point to. But it's like, hey, we pay your salaries, we pay all this stuff as taxpayers. Can you just do? And then we talked, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sure you guys talked about it last week. The SAVE Act, it's popular with like everybody. Like, they do all these polls, they're talking to all these people. It's pretty much everybody except for Democrat politicians. Even Democrat, voters are in favor of this. Like, it makes sense. We have to show ID for everything from driver's license to returning items at Walmart to, go into an R-rated movie, whatever that is. Like we're constantly having to show our ID. Even now for, to get on Facebook wants me to, like my age is wrong on Facebook. I barely ever on there, but they're like, hey, show us your ID if you want to change your birth date. I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like it's getting a little bit wild. But yeah, Edward, what do you think as far as related to the Save Act and voter, I guess, identification part of it?
Voter ID is pretty common sense to verify the qualifications for exercising rights, especially when it impacts the the outcome of the coercive authority of our government. When we get to select our representatives and the people who are chosen to wield the power of our government, it's pretty important to have only the citizens have a say in the government that is supposed to represent them, and not foreign interests or the interests of people who are not, I'd say, do not have alliance to the United, or do not have allegiance to the United States and are not actual citizens of the United States. Save Act is common sense. It's also, I'd say, on face constitutional when you read Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But, and this is the key point, the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. So the federal Congress does have the power to go and ensure that at least the elections for the House of Representatives and the Senate are integrous, and they can prohibit illegal immigrants from voting in our elections in the House and Senate. And I'd say that the SAVE Act fulfills that role, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's probably should have been, and it's the idea is like the founders said we shouldn't have all these like laws because we should be able to agree on these things. It should, the more laws you have, the more of like there's a reason, a debate kind of back and forth stuff. But yeah, there should be just be like, yep, this is our country. This is, you're voting for these things. But yeah, it just gets more in the weeds. So yeah, it's been
and
been
you even have Democrats supporting it, right? You have people breaking rank because anybody that's left of center and not like on the extreme fringes, which they'll never come to the table. But those people in the middle, like you have like Fetterman almost practically, without saying it, flipping sides, right? Especially over this particular issue where he's like, this is what my voters want. Like they're recognizing if I want a job after the midterms, I need to be on board with this bill, with this act.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, let's jump into some a little bit more horrific, some more extreme stuff when it comes to airports. So this was pretty shocking to me. A lot of people are hesitant of air travel, but this kind of came up. So pilot killed in Air Canada crash at LaGuardia, identified as, what is it, Antoine Forrest? So he's 30 years old, from Quebec. One of the pilots who was killed in the Air Canada plane crash at LaGuardia Airport on Sunday evening has been identified as Antoine Forrest. The pilot, as well as the co-pilot, were killed in the crash where the plane collided with a fire truck crossing the runway. And yeah, I believe there's a video. Yeah, tough to watch. That one's a little bit blurry. I've seen it more.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Has there been any sort of initial report as to why the truck and the plane collided? Because it looks like the plane is taxiing to take off, which means, every time I've ever traveled, you hear them talking about, clear the runway, is the runway clear? You can hear some of that radio chatter. So that's kind of, has there been like, was it negligence? Was it
I didn't see a specific reason. I know planes, they have the right of way when it comes to all this stuff. All the other ground traffic is supposed to stop. Then when you add in it's a fire truck, that makes it a lot more dangerous for sure. But here's a statement. Airport said in a statement about the incident at approximately, it's just saying more about the details. And yeah, emergency response protocols were immediately activated. Port Authority Police Department is on the scene along with the agency's chairman and executive director. So yeah, it's tough when that stuff happens. I was in Army aviation, and you go through so much safety protocols, kind of over and over again, run scenarios, and that's something that could happen. It's it's absolutely horrific. I know one of the flight attendants, I guess, they were ejected from the plane and survived. Yeah. I mean, how do you guys feel about overall, I guess? Because remember, it was about a year ago or so, it was the helicopter and the plane collided in D.C. And I don't know. I hate to say if this is like a DEI thing, I should say a qualification type deal, or if things just happen and we're recording it more, everything gets shared and analyzed. Where are we at in this? What do you think, Edward?
It's certainly a tragedy, and I hate to see accidents like this occur. From the information I've seen on the incident, I don't know if it was based on qualification from DEI policy. If that were the case, and the person involved in this incident who was managing air traffic control at that time was not qualified, then that is an indicator that we should, of course, have qualified people operating in critical roles, such as air traffic control, and just in general, especially in public institutions. In private institutions, you can have whatever means of employment you wish, or you can have whatever qualifications for employment you wish, and you can choose to employ anyone you want. But for public institutions, it should not be discriminatory, but it also should be based on qualification. But given that I don't see any evidence right now that it was based off of a DEI lack of qualification, it's just a tragedy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I got another blurb here. It says the video of the crash showed the nose of the plane completely destroyed as the truck swung into the side of the runway in the aftermath of the crash. Multiple passengers said that the plane appeared to be landing like normal until the pilot tried to hit the brakes. So it was going 24 miles an hour, and then hit as it impacted. So, gosh, they were so close to being done, but it's
I'm somewhere not quite at tinfoil hat theory with this, but this harkens back to me because it involves a truck, and I know like even a month or so ago we had that that man from I believe the Middle East, India or somewhere, that was driving the semi. He was here on a visa, not a legal citizen, couldn't read English, plowed through like 6 or 7 vehicles, killed multiple people, a family, a woman with her children, and you see the pictures of him being hauled away in cuffs, and his face is just blank. Like he's like he could care less that he took lives. He could care less that he couldn't read the signs. Like the last time I got rear-ended, the person was apologizing to me for like the entire interaction of getting their insurance and swapping information, right, and filling out the accident report. And this guy plows through multiple vehicles, nothing. I don't know if that's what happened here, but I do know that they've been revoking CDL and trucking licenses for a lot of people that were hired or given the jobs in places like California that aren't legal residents. Haven't proven that they can read English or understand our road signs, or even just how traffic flows in this country. Because every state is different, and it's some states people drive a little more nuts than others, or nuts in a different way. And you need to know those nuances especially if you're gonna be doing commercial transportation. I don't know if that's necessarily what happened here, but my tinfoil hat, my very anti-DEI brain tells me that that played a role in this somewhere, or it was either a situation in the pilot's cabin or it was a situation with this truck person
Yeah.
that shouldn't have been
Let's
on
hear
that
what
run.
the passenger was
When we
saying.
landed, everyone felt it. It just like the plane like jolted, and you heard the pilot try to brake like he was trying to prevent the collision that occurred. A couple seconds later, it was just a very loud boom, and everybody just jolted out of their seats. People hit their heads. People were bleeding. So I'm asking everyone around me if they're okay. And then one of the passengers screamed to me, like, please open the exit door. And I was like, of course. A lot of people slid off of the wing of the plane, getting out. And then by the time I got out, there was emergency personnel, and someone was able to assist me sliding off of the wing. They had us standing next to an emergency vehicle, and that's when we were able to see the extensive damage of the plane. Breathing is a little painful. I feel bruising from the seatbelt that I had on, just from the impact and the seatbelt being just on my skin. I wouldn't have never pictured a 1 hour flight that I've done countless times, because I have family that lives in Montreal, ending like this. When we landed.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just thoughts and prayers for the pilots, the pilot, the co-pilot, the families. It's something that, you know, you try as hard to not happen, you know, in this day and age, when it comes to that kind of transportation. Other passengers are saying this is a, you know, a normal 1 hour flight that they've done many times before. But yeah, I always promote cross training, learning as much as you can, especially when it comes to survival, safeties, situational awareness, a lot of the military things that we pick up, and hopefully kind of sticks with you. So it's always good to be careful out there. Any last thoughts on this one, or kind of overall airports right now, guys?
No, I feel like we covered what we can on that. I mean, as more information comes out, I'm sure we'll do a follow up on this, and maybe my tinfoil hat theory is correct, or maybe I'm way off. But I think that as more comes out, we definitely want to circle back and talk about this some more.
Yeah, on a little bit more lighter one, or I guess when to say, David, you want to talk about Alan Richardson? I always mess up his name a little bit.
It's Richardson, Richterson. I don't know.
Richterson.
Thing. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I'm not sure which one it is either. But this guy has been falling off lately with his fan base. You know, when he first jumped onto the scene in film, it looked like possibly a return to that 80s action star, right? The guy with muscles. And we'll talk a little bit more about 80s nostalgia with the next story after this. But instead, you get this guy who's completely just Trump derangement syndrome. He comes out, he makes shows about the military, about law enforcement, while hating the military, while hating law enforcement, and he's always got something to say about either the president or being anti-police, anti-ICE, and it. I don't think he understands that most of his fan base, like the liberal left, is not going to see his movies. It's it's like things like Reacher struck a chord with you're more conservative, you're more rural, right, base. But so here, this is the story coming out of this morning or yesterday on the 22nd of March. Footage shows Reacher star Alan Richson, actually I think it's Richson, in a neighborhood fight under investigation with no arrests so far. Tensions began when Richson rode a dirt bike at high speed, creating noise that drew complaints and a rude gesture exchanged with neighbor Ronnie Taylor, who confronted him again, riding alongside two young children believed to be Richardson's sons. What the video shows is a verbal exchange quickly turning physical as Taylor and Richardson face off in a brief scuffle while the children are visibly nearby, with Taylor alleging multiple punches and kicks. TMZ reported on the investigation is ongoing. Ronnie Taylor filed a police report the same day, and Richardson has not publicly responded. There is an update to that. It sounds like that his team and his camp is claiming that Taylor is the instigator of this situation, where he like, because you see in the footage that we'll show in a minute, Richardson's bike is laid down, and it's basically before the recording started, Taylor had pushed the bike over. However, on the other side of it, what Taylor's been saying is, he was basically speeding through the neighborhood, on this dirt bike making all kinds of noise. This is a nice neighborhood. If you look at the houses in the background, this is a nice neighborhood. And you have somebody speeding around on bikes. These people have their, obviously families live here. And for the footage, it looks like it's from the inside of Taylor's house, and it's probably a family member. So his family got to watch him get beat up by this Trump derangement celebrity who thinks, that he doesn't have to follow the same decency rules in a neighborhood like the rest of us. Like if I go rip roaring through a neighborhood on my bike at high speed, or I'm making it make louder noises than it needs to, people have a right to complain. But AM, if you could pull up that video, the TMZ link. I want to show
I didn't know that
this.
last part that he disclosed struggles with bipolar disorder, ADHD, in a 2019 suicide attempt.
Yep.
It's interesting.
And here's the thing: as somebody who's dealt with PTSD, and I'm sure you've had this as well, it doesn't excuse bad behavior, right? You can't use ADHD and bipolar as an excuse to beat the crap out of your neighbor because they want you to behave yourself and be a good neighbor. I don't know where I've seen a lot of people, especially in the celebrity community, taking mental health and trying to use it as a blanket all for their poor behavior, right? Like if one of us was to have a PTSD issue and engage in conflict with somebody, we're still paying the price for that decision. You don't get an out card for it.
Yeah, we got to remember that these are real people, even though they're actors, they're icons, they're celebrities, or they're whatever, endorsements for these big companies. They're real people, and we all got our own opinions. And I try to separate the art from the artist when it comes to The Reacher. I really like that show and the movies and stuff like that. And it's tough when everything seems to be political and you just want some escapism and everything, even if they could tone it down. But we're in a different age now.
Yeah.
Edward, you might not know, because back then, only time you really saw a celebrity's opinion or even what they look like off screen was at the Academy Awards and different award shows,
or a late night interview. Yeah.
Yep. And those are very tame. They kept to a good amount, I guess, in order to just kind of do their job. And nowadays it's just they feel like they have free reign, and it does have an impact. What are your thoughts on this when it comes to celebrities and how they go about things, Edward?
I've certainly seen I was born in 2007. I did not see the era of...
My knees hurt.
I did not see the era where celebrities didn't share their opinions, or at least their public function was more the art and not commentary. Now, artists doing commentary is not an inherently bad thing, even if their commentary is perceived as disagreeable, where even if the majority of the country is like, okay, that's a bad take, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the charged nature the charged nature of our culture today, where if Alan Richardson comes out and says, I hate Trump, the one side of the country says, I hate you and I'm going to abstain from watching your art. And then the other says, okay, I love you and I'm going to watch your art. And then if Alan Richardson comes out and has a different take, where that side who previously endorsed him and his art then disagrees with him, they'll abstain from his art. That whole environment is very unhealthy, where there's so much polarization and disagreeableness, and not no one, that's kind of misrepresentative, but I'd say very few people today in our culture, I wouldn't even say that. I yearn for a day where we can have people who hold all different ideas along the political spectrum exist together and live positively together, where we can focus on common goals and common problems, and perhaps disagree on the solutions to those problems, but we can have art again and beauty again in the world where it isn't always politicized. And that's something that I've seen as very unfortunate in the era that I'm growing up in, and I'd like to see that change.
You know what he's describing, Drew? At least what I'm hearing, he's describing the original Star Trek series where you had characters that were written clearly very conservative. You had characters that were more liberal leaning, and you had people that were in the middle, and you had people that, and they all worked together on a ship and solved whatever the problem of the week was. And even the creator of the show was more left leaning, but he still treated all of his conservative characters with respect, and you were rooting for all of them to win as a group. And that sounds like what Eddie's describing. What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, and learn from your mistakes, because I make mistakes every day. I'm sure a lot of people do it, or like don't see things the way somebody else does, or you can admit, fault when it makes sense and be like, okay, now I'm growing as a person. I'm learning another perspective, and we just seem, at least comparatively to like what I know, is we're just in this age where just everyone's kind of at each other's throats and has to be right on their own side, and this very just tribal, and you noticed it in 2016 or or further. I mean, you could go back 2012 and this and that, but it just gets more boiling. But yeah, go ahead and show that video. Let's actually look at kind of what went down. I like that the video that I saw, it was like somebody's phone camera inside a bedroom across the street or something like that. It's just like cameras are everywhere.
Yeah, you can't do something in the modern age.
It started on Saturday morning and I'm an experienced motorcycle rider. I've been riding bikes all my life. So, from dirt bikes to
so this is actually the Taylor individual.
I'd heard this incestuous revving and speeding through our neighborhood of the motorcycle. I eventually saw the guy on Saturday. I didn't know who it was. And I sort of like flippantly sort of said, "Guy, like he was quite a way." And I said, "Can you just slow it down, please?" And then there are numerous people in my neighborhood who caught all of this on Ring doorbells of him speeding through the neighborhood. And on Sunday, when I was cleaning my bike outside my house, he rode past once, twice, and on the second time, I walked out in front of him and I said, "You've got to stop. Someone's going to get hurt." And it escalated quite quickly from there. I did push him because he was coming towards me on his bike. He did it again for a second time. I pushed him a second time. I think the second time he got off his bike and it kicked the crap out of me. And you can see he hit me in the back of my head. I went to the ground and covered myself. I've had such a shitty day today, and I don't wish the guy any malice or ill will, but we just don't need people riding through neighborhoods like this. And I just decided, I'm take a stand because someone else has to, because it's going to end up way worse than it could have.
Interesting. So that's the guy that's like, that got it.
Yep.
Mega hat
AM, if you want to scroll down, we actually further down in that website, in that article, the second video is actually the altercation. It doesn't have any sound, so we can talk over it. But yeah, he came out. TMZ lately, between this and Justin Timberlake getting a DWI, which we can talk about if there's time at the end, they've actually been a little more in the middle lately, which is odd because that's usually not them. They're usually picking one side in a conflict. But I mean, there's really no way to excuse what Richardson's has done here, even if the other guy started it, to take it to that level in front of his home, in front of his children, in front of his family, in front of your children as well. It's not a good look.
I think there's a reason TMZ is trying to be a little bit more fair, or at least show that other angle for two reasons, in my opinion. When the Charlie Kirk assassination went down, from all information, what I noticed, they had people talk. They had the two guys talking about it, and then people in the background laughing and stuff like that. And there was a back and forth. That was last year, and then with all this Epstein. Well, now three things with Epstein. There were some things related to TMZ in there as well, and then you had this the kidnapping. I'm blanking on the name, Helen, I believe, and so they were like this in middleman person in between this missing person related to Guthrie was the name. There's been so many news cycles that I've forgotten about this, but so they were in between this ransom and yeah, it was really strange. So TMZ has kind of been in a weird spot lately. But yeah, if you got that video whenever you're ready, maybe we don't got it ready. But
yeah, and here's the thing: this is only going to hurt his career more. Because like we talked about before, kind of what Eddie alluded to, right, is when you have somebody who comes out and says, they're pro-Trump, like Nicki Minaj, right? All everybody on the right goes and blows up her music. When you have somebody that says they're anti-Trump and they're anti-ICE, like Richson, right? You have that same group of people not going to his movies anymore, or participating. Oh, perfect. We have the let's play this. It doesn't have any sound, so we can keep talking over it, but you can clearly see this is after the bike is on the ground.
That's Alan up on top. Yep. That's a big beast.
And those are his sons just sitting there watching him beat the crap out of this man.
Oh, that's horrible. Yeah. So they're in the middle of the street here, two, probably nice houses. And
oh, yeah, look at the size of that house. That's a nice home.
Yep. Well,
and Rich can't even drive his bike. What are you doing? Like, walk it if you can't control it.
Yeah, he got his bike off the road and threw it over in the in the yard.
Well,
like he's gonna go. They're gonna go at it again.
Driving it. Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe this stuff has always gone on, and it's just like not on now. It's just everything's on video, like you said, the Ring camera.
Right.
Now, when everybody has a Ring camera and a Google thing inside the house, it's tough for me.
Here's what this reminds me of, right? It's kind of like going back to the Justin Timberlake getting pulled over, right? Because he's intoxicated. In the video, you can see he's trying.
Sorry, context. Is that a new one? Or finish what you're saying. I want to be updated on this.
You're right. So that's another thing TMZ just released in AM. If you can find it, I'm throwing you a Hail Mary here last minute. But in the interview, they have the officer's body cam footage. You can clearly see him trying to ask for special treatment without asking for special treatment. And so I just think you have this, when you idolize people, when you like you were saying before, you forget that they're just normal people and they've lived in this bubble for so long. They forget that they're still accountable for their behavior and that they're not going to get special treatment once it becomes a legal or a criminal thing. At least not anymore. Maybe there was a time when you could brush things under the rug and still come out and do an apology tour. But like you said, with the age of the camera everywhere, I don't think that's a thing anymore because there's no way to explain away the beating that we just saw. What are your thoughts on that, Eddie?
I attempt to always hold a philosophy of forgiveness, but that has to be met by a genuine intent to improve oneself in the other party, where I am not gonna I'm not gonna put out a whole condemnation of what Alan Richardson did yet, because I don't think I have sufficient perspective of all the information to go out and say, I 100% know he was 100% in the wrong, because maybe there was some more video prior to that bit of video. Right there, I think it was perhaps there was actually an inappropriate amount of force used there, especially as it appeared that his neighbor was on the ground not engaging in the physical altercation. Yeah,
I see where you're going with this, Edward. And yeah, you got to see the whole thing, the beginning, the middle, the end. We only get kind of clips of this. I'm kind of more in this whole bird's eye view of comparing it to what we used to have, where it's just I compare it to in the Army. We get in little skirmishes and basic training, even on deployment, and it's just you get heated. It's emotional. You're sad, you're adrenaline, you're upset, and usually it just brushes off. Think about football. They're on a play and they bump into each other and they give a little, or hockey, and then they go back and timeout. We have these rules in the games and everything like that, but it's so wild that now that, like we said, everything's recorded, everything is promoted out, we're talking about it, we're putting it out on blast, and it's just, we have no privacy, and we are all just people. And then going back to when we talked about the ADHD, the PTSD, whatever the mental health kind of variation of it's, I'm just more on the side where we need to just take some time, calm down, and then kind of recount of what went down, and then be open to discussion. But you got to have, the two people or all parties involved that are going to be, what's the word? Just going to be not fair, but just going to be adults, mature, and then we can move on. But if they're bad actors is what I was trying to avoid. But if there's going to be bad actors, then it's just only going to escalate. And if people are going to profit from it, lawyers, PR, all these different things, sponsors, up or down, we're in we're in the Wild West right now. I mean, we always are in some way, but right now we're in like a privacy information Wild West. What do you got, David?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Real quick, I want a quick update because unlike mainstream media journalists, I can admit when I'm wrong. This is actually body cam footage from his 2024 arrest. It was never released, and I guess now he's entering into some legal stuff to fight to keep it from getting released, but it's already out. TMZ already has it. But real quick, before we do that, we did get a great comment from John. In the live chat. It looks like John just threw us something. He's been one of our longest followers, so John, appreciate you being a day one. But he said there was a time in life where things were easier to get away with, but the day of the iPhone and internet just at your fingertips, anything and everything can be instantly posted online has changed a lot of things, and I would agree with that. And we're already in a time when movie theaters are struggling, and it's just unfortunate when people make political plays. You saw that with like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs actress, kind of tanking that film with her hot political takes. And even Alan Richardson's last film he did, which was a World War II movie about this special operations group in England, the Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare. Even that tanked at the box office after he came out and was saying all the anti-ICE stuff. So it's just unfortunate that people don't know how to just kind of keep their mouth shut and do their jobs and think long term. Like, hey, how's this going to affect the financial projections of my career if I'm a public figure like a celebrity? It's a little different if you're a political figure, right? You have a side, you have a take, you have an opinion. But if you're an entertainer, your goal is to not polarize either side. At least I would think so. But we can go ahead and play this footage.
Yeah, if it's a longer clip, just play a little bit here and there and try to get.
You're keep veering off to the left, and then you're not stopping at the stop signs.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Is this your vehicle? Whose vehicle is it?
It's just a rental.
It's a rental? Okay. Do you have any registration with it? Do you know if they can put it in the glove box?
I'm Justin Timberlake.
What's your name?
Justin Timberlake.
You are Justin Timberlake?
Yeah.
Do you have a license with
Let's
you?
pause it right
Yeah, I
there.
do.
Well, we'll go.
You don't know who I am? That's
You don't
the
know who
new
I am.
age. Don't you know who I am?
And this is
That's
rough
exactly what that is.
because, they ask for body cams like years ago with, the last, 10, 15 years has been a lot of, assumed police favorable things and stuff like that. So it's like, we need body cams. And this is what you get when you get every, police officer, local and now more federal with the ICE are going to have body cams. It's going to catch everything, and it's going to be detailed. It's going to make the courts more complicated. I swear, the attorneys are just going to make money off all this stuff. But yeah, it used to be like they could probably just say, I'm Justin Timberlake, or hey, I'm just trying to get home. I'm very close. I heard stories where, it used to be if you were drinking, the cop would follow you home or let you go or this or that. And I'm not saying that's probably the best idea out there, but now it seems like more of a zero tolerance if it's going to be like kind of across the board. And it's tough because it's just going to get everybody. I mean, I've cut down my alcohol to basically zero because you just never know that whatever it is reality. What can be perceived is reality these
people's
days.
Perception is their reality.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah. Eddie, what do you feel about this whole, the celebrity culture of don't you know who I am? I have a take on it, but I wanna get what Eddie's thoughts are real quick.
I think that, well, of course, pride is a sin when it gets to that extreme, where you expect a different level of treatment, or you expect a different treatment based off of how many people know you, or based off of your level of influence, or based off of your level of success, or your financial standing. And I think that that is something that people have to endeavor more to regulate. I try my best to regulate my sins, and I understand that other people, and as well as myself, fail to do that often. But given that I'm trying to do that more often, I always encourage other people to try to do that more often. So I'd really hope that in our future we just see more people try to avoid the sin of pride and come to recognize each other, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their financial standing. Recognize everyone as equal under the law and as having equal value.
Yeah, it will be something like that. I mean, I compare it to finances and the economy and stuff. We had been in this K-shaped recovery since COVID era type things where, and people say it in different ways. Rich get richer, poor get poorer. But you really get to decide as an individual every day kind of what direction you want to go to. And it's not easy. It's not easy to wake up early, hit the gym, write some thank you cards and, talk to your neighbor, do all this stuff, participate in your kids' sports or, people in your life. It's tough. Life is tough, but you have to do all those things in order to succeed and be where you want to be. And rather than saying, "Oh, that person over there has it so good," Justin Timberlake has it all. But it's like, no, I go back to this, everything's recorded, and if it's going to be that way, it's going to be that way. And so now we as individuals get to decide, yep, I'm going to do the best I can. And when mistakes happen, if you're going to get in trouble with the law, you got to own it. I compare that when I worked security for, yeah, it was the Minnesota Super Bowl, and it was Kevin Hart, where I had a job to do. They said, doesn't matter who it is, I can only let in certain people with the certain thing on their name tag or on their pass at certain times on the field. It was a big deal. So I had celebrities coming up to me, and Kevin Hart came up to me, and they said, he's like, "Let me get on. Don't you know?" And I heard that phrase, "Don't you know who I am?" And he had a entourage, he had all this stuff, and he wanted to get on the field. And it was right after the game ended, and I couldn't do it. I said no, and I told him to go away, and he did. He went off. He complained and went off some other direction, found a way to get on the field, and he was completely drunk too, I could tell. And then I watched later that he got on these shows, and they let him come on the field. He actually snuck in through like a suite, and got, I don't know exactly how he did it, but he got on these NFL shows and made a fool of himself and all these things, and they actually kicked him off. And I'm glad I didn't have any part of that, of helping make a cause like that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't even know how to feel about that information because I did not know that backstory of Kevin Hart. But yeah, I'm guessing what he did was he just got somebody else who wasn't maybe as disciplined or as principled, and he was able to say, "I'm Kevin Hart," and they let him through. What's interesting is celebrities live in such a bubble of reality where their name gets them into dinner parties. They go to these award shows, and they get the free goodie bags from Louis Vuitton or whoever, and they get all this stuff that they forget just basic manners. And it's always interesting to see like the new celebrity versus somebody who's been in that life for so long. I think the best example is actually Kit Harington, who played Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. He went on one of the late night shows, and this is right as his star was starting to rise. Right, he was getting booked for all these films and other TV shows for his, for the rest of his career after the show ended. But he talked about how season 5 they kill him off, spoiler alert for a show that's been out for a hot minute. He gets pulled over for speeding home from like his parents' house or whatever in the UK, and the officer is like, I can give you a ticket, or you can tell me if you're really dead or if you're coming back for next season. And here's the thing, he could have done the "don't you know who I am, let me go," whatever. Instead, he just looked at the officer and he was like sheepishly, and he'd already been told he wasn't supposed to tell anybody. He's just like, "I'm coming back next season." And the guy was like, "On your way, Lord Commander." And they had this nice moment. And yeah, if you go into something and you're gracious and you act with respect and you don't pull the "I'm more important than you" card, "I'm looking down on you" peasant card, which is what a lot of celebrities default to, you're actually probably going to get the outcome you want. No, not in maybe Justin Timberlake's case because he was intoxicated, but it's just you got to conduct yourself, with respect towards law enforcement. But we are in the second half of the hour, and Drew,
let's
so we can get to know
those are some great articles. Some heavy hitters for sure too. We got a couple that we can save for a little bit later. But yeah, let's really dive into our guest, Edward. Tell us a little bit even more about what you do currently and how you're absolutely crushing it and any struggles you're running into. So, yeah, floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Drew. Again, thank you for having me on. Thank you for giving me this platform or giving me access to this platform to chat. I have been working as much as I can, walking through every door to try to improve particularly my state, Minnesota, and our country as a whole. I came to realize a few years ago that, after much reflection, that my talents and my passion aligned in politics, and I would be able to have the greatest positive impact in the world through public service in that arena. And I want to be an incoercible actor for what is true and God's good in that arena so that we can have freedom and prosperity for our posterity. I have grown discontent, as well as many other people in my generation, with the status quo of our government not facilitating desirable outcomes, and also I've grown discontent, and I'm confident the people in my generation have grown discontent with the people in our government not presenting or I can confidently say not being integrous and good faith actors. When we look to the founders, they, at least in retrospect, appear principled and dedicated to a certain cause. You look at the pledge at the end of the Declaration of Independence, that we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That kind of incoercible actor is what we need today, and that's what I want to be. So that's what I have been doing in a lot of my extracurriculars and in all my time that I'm not allocating to academics.
That's excellent. I want to hit on that real quick. It seems like you're picking up of where the current atmosphere is, kind of what's been changing, and we've touched on this the past hour. It's just like we are going through a big change right now, and like I'm just going to keep using that K-shape recovery, and you seem like a good example of that, where it's just like you're seeing what's out there and you're saying I'm going to be something different, and I'm going to attach it to values or something that you grew up on. Would you say that's about accurate, or can you expand on that?
So your question is,
you're kind of seeing what's out there and realizing that a change needs to happen, and you're attaching it to something you believe in. Is that right?
Yeah. So a little bit of backstory on my values and where that came from. I was raised absent religion and absent politics my whole life up until I became a teenager. So I was agnostic for like the first 17 years of my life until very recently. And I was raised absent politics for a very long time. So I did not get tapped into or plugged into the political information space until shortly after the COVID pandemic hit. And a lot of my moral foundation has been explored and worked on in recent years, where I've been engaging with where morals come from, and based off of experiential premises and just a lot of thought, I've confidently come to the sitting conclusion that the morality comes from, well, of course, you cannot have morality absent divinity, but morality comes from the Christian God, for that is the supernatural nature of the world that is most likely true, and I am confident is true. So I base my morals off of Christianity, and that was completely out of my own explanation, my own exploration, aided by my parents, and then my political worldview has been shaped by the founders and colonial America, and that's the foundation, both morally and politically, that I've been approaching my good faith political efforts from.
That's incredible. And actually, you kind of touched on it a little bit that you're politically involved, you're politically engaged. We talked about this a little bit before the show, and I have to just say for the people who are just listening to this podcast, who can't see just how young this man looks. He is 18 years old. I don't know about you, Drew, but I wasn't making my words did not come out that well at 18, and I wasn't making as good of life decisions. I was jumping out of airplanes and being crazy for Uncle Sam, but and drinking and chasing girls and just making bad choices. So I'm impressed with you. I'm very proud to see where you're going and what you're becoming. But I want to dive in because you said you're politically involved. Can you? We talked a little before the show, like I said, and you've attended your local BPOUs, your local conventions. Kind of tell us what roles have you stepped into politically there?
Yeah. So I stated earlier that I came to understand that my passions and talents aligned for involvement in politics. I realized that a couple years ago. So I tried to get involved in civics as much as I could starting around 16. And the first thing I did was become an election judge. I served as a junior election judge. I believe that that's the official title for it, but a teenage under 18 election judge. I served in the 2024 and 2025 elections. Then moving on from that, through a friend of mine from Law Enforcement Explorers who's involved in youth and government, got me associated with a program running through the YMCA, which was advocating for the Minnesota Civic Seal. And that was just it was a very, very low cost, minimal cost program which would encourage civic engagement to try to reverse civic apathy in high schools, where you could elect to take another civics class and then you'd have a civic seal placed on your diploma. So I went and advocated in the Minnesota State Legislature for that legislation, and I was actually one of the most, if not the most successful advocate in that program, where I went 6 for 6, both Republican and Democrat. I managed to get signed onto that legislation.
That's incredible. That's a really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I only say that because like anything you can add on to make the high school experience more effective, I guess, to the life that you're going to walk into. I mean, I always push like personal finance and in that area, and knowing how to go about that stuff. But yeah, I'm leaning more towards like what you're saying as well. Have some kind of civic engagement, knowledge, developing that in your mid-teen kind of years before that. So yeah, way to go on that front.
Yeah, thanks. And I can try to wrap up my rap sheet quickly, but I've then.
Oh no, you can lay out all the details. This is your time.
I'm a college student in high school, so I'm attending a community college near me, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years. I got involved in the student government there in my technically junior year of high school, my second year at the college. And I was sent to DC to discuss federal education policy with the staffers of legislators on behalf of the student body at my community college. There, I was.
Yeah, let's touch on that real quick for the parents and students that don't know that it's I did it as well, PSEO, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Post-secondary enrollment option. It's where you're attending high school and you also attend college as well, and so you double dip on credits. Is that right?
Yeah, and as soon as I could, I was taking only college classes, and I attend an online statewide high school, so I do not attend high school in person, which has allowed me a very elective schedule to be able to do everything I'm doing and have a job and work as much as I can to build a better state and build a foundation for a family in the future. So I went and attended this advocacy weekend in DC. That was something that I was proud to go and integrally represent the sentiments of the student body at my college, where they advocated for federally subsidized education. And I went and said to those staffers, I said, yes, this is what the student body at my school wants. They want federally subsidized education. They want greater subsidies going to the Pell Grant and going to FAFSA. And then I said, as an independent actor, aside from my role as a representative, I went and said, I do, however, want to make my principle clear that I do not believe that a Maynard should pay for a Californian's education. So I managed to integrally live in line with my principle and also perform that function as a representative. Then I was communications director at that time in my student government, and I was elected that spring to the role of president of my student government. So I've been president for this school year, my senior year, my third year at the college. So I've been president of student government. And then I started a TPUSA chapter shortly after, well, I began starting a TPUSA chapter shortly after Charlie Kirk died in September of 2025. I started a high school chapter and a college chapter. There was some procedural blocks to that, where it ended up taking 5 months for me to even be able to say, yes, I'm starting a chapter on campus, because they needed to go through the policy and take as much time as they needed.
That's a good point. Like, you can have these goals that you want to get done that sound really cool, or that you're excited about, and then you run into the bureaucracy, especially when you're trying to do something that either hasn't been done before or is possible but will require a lot of steps that you weren't even thinking about. Or if it seems to be going smoothly and the plan is, but then you get people that get involved and want to probably stand up to you, that a variable that you probably weren't expecting. So yeah, those are tough, but man, that is probably building your character. I'm sure you're learning a lot along the way. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, I engage on the battlefield in this arena with a smile. I really try to live in line with what is true, live in alignment with the truth, and live in alignment with God's good. That is the principle and the post that I always try to stand by and live by. So when I started this college chapter, and I could officially go and advertise it this spring, it was mid to late January. I had 9 people sign up. They were all eager to join and eager to be on the chapter, or involved in the chapter and engage in civil dialogue. But then many of them backed out. I lost my whole leadership board. They all backed out, citing their involvement in student employment programs or other opportunities in the college as a reason for not joining the chapter, because they didn't want to have the blowback or the repercussions in their environments for openly advertising their conservative affiliations or their conservative beliefs. So it took a little while to replace my leadership board, but I've continued to hold relationships with those people who backed out, and they've been supporting me behind the scenes, and they've continued to encourage me to do what I'm doing, and I've really tried to honor what I started. But the one thing that stands out is one of my friends who backed out said, I just don't understand how you can handle all of the fight that you've been receiving and not let it get to you. Because I laugh every time a new hurdle comes my way. I actually have testimony to staff and students conspiring to get me expelled from my college for starting this chapter, trying to go and orchestrate code of conduct violation submissions, and setting me up to try to get me to violate a code of conduct policy. Wow. And I just smile every time I hear something new like that.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I mean, some of those sound malicious for sure, but the way that you put that previous one is like, I don't know how you could do that. I used to hear things like that, and it would sound like a diss, like an insult or whatever, or or why are you doing it that way? And after a while, it'd be like, okay, they're actually complimenting me, but they don't know how to say it in a compliment kind of form. Or okay, I give the example of like when I went through this major medical issue and everyone's like, how do you keep doing it? One guy said, one of my good friends, he goes, I'm glad that happened to you and not me. And I'm like, excuse me, and he's like, oh no, I said that wrong. I meant you have so much strength and motivation to get it through that. He said, I would have checked out, months ago. And I'm like, okay. Like, it's hard to take something like that in, but it's just like, it's similar to, that reminded me when you were saying that people say like, I don't know how you do it. That means you're probably on the right track. And it means you got to keep going. Those are those days that you probably want to journal and reflect on that incident and not just be a drive-by. But yeah, you're picking up some amazing life skills very early on. And I hope that builds your character. Because yeah, you're going to be in for it if you keep going in this direction, and you're going to really step up.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely complimentary, and I was very humbled and flattered to receive that compliment by my friend, where she just was encouraging me to remain fortified in the face of this opposition. And I did. Again, I just tried to live in line with the truth and what is good, and none of the attacks are substantive, and the people opposing my presence on campus don't have any substantive ammunition to use to actually attempt to remove me from campus or remove my chapter from campus, because I'm just there trying to have civil dialogue and civil discourse to reverse the civic apathy in our country and bridge the political divide that has really harmed our culture. And then beyond my involvement with TPUSA and these other programs, once I turned 18, I tried to, and have been getting involved in actual politics as an 18-year-old, because there's just less opportunity as a pre-18-year-old teenager, given that you're not an adult. So I got involved on my local Senate district exec board. I went to their exec board meeting and then went to their political networking events. I got involved in the caucus process. So I went to caucus, served as a secretary to the I served as a secretary to the precinct level caucus, and then I served just as a delegate to the Senate district wide BPOU convention, and then I got elected at that BPOU convention to the congressional district convention and the state convention, which I was very honored to receive the delegated responsibility from the other people in my Senate district.
Yeah, I really wish AK was here, because you're the type of guy that he
would
speaks out to and say, hey, get involved. And you're the type that has done it and is continually to do it.
You're a testament to what people in the conservative space have been trying to accomplish, right? Where we get this next generation activated and excited about the country and what they can do with the reins of this country, because ultimately you will be the one taking on those reins. I know I got to be witness to some of the conversations you had over the last weekends, where you were told by some pretty influential people that you are ultimately the future of the party and ultimately the future of the country. And that's just you're a walking testament to you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish in this country, and that's part of what makes this country incredibly what it is. But so correct me if I'm wrong. You're the youngest delegate in your district.
Yes.
Because you
Yes.
basically just made the cutoff. That's incredible. And we'll get to see you at the state convention because I'm going to that as well. And AK will be there in his role as the RNC committee man. So you'll get to spend some one-on-one time with him up there. Or well, however that works out, there's gonna be a bunch of people there. So you'll at the very least get to shake his hand. I'll try to make sure to introduce you to him. But what so you have a full life. You have a busy schedule. You and I talked, and you were doing some law enforcement training over the weekend. So you got college, you got high school, you got law enforcement training, and I'm assuming you work somewhere in there from time to time. How does someone your age, with all of the distractions of life, right? You got your social medias, you got your TikToks, your Instagram reels, right? How do you manage the time that you have in the way that you do, to where you can then say, I also want to take on politics and be involved at the level you are? Because most people either just show up to like their BPOU meetings and they vote on something and they go home, but you're actively campaigning for local leadership within your district. So kind of explain that, just like what do you do with your time? What are we avoiding the distractions? Do we stay off social media? Do we spend more time reading? How do you balance all of those different, because you're balancing multiple lives right now, as it were.
Jump in, Edward. Dave's going to keep talking.
I will too. Yeah.
So I stayed off of social media until I turned 18 and began getting involved in politics. So the time allocated to social media was not a problem for me. I have a unique set of educational circumstances which have afforded me a far more elective schedule. So I've been able to not spend 8 hours a day in a brick being taught by someone else. I've had a very independent learning experience, and I've been very privileged to have that. I just use I've actually had similar conversation with a few of my friends about this, like, okay, how do you allocate your time? How do you manage your time? And I boil it down to why. But everything that you do in life has to have a why behind it if you're going to succeed in it. The core question, the most important question in life that I've seen personally, and I'm only 18, so I may not be the most wise, but from my experience and the information that I've gathered, the most important question to ask is why. And that started out with me as an agnostic, asking, why do I have morals? Where do my morals come from? And that sent me down the rabbit hole and sent me down the exploration for a moral foundation. Because absent an objective moral foundation, you're not going to be able to make moral value judgments. So you're not going to be able to say someone else ought to do something. And you're not going to be able to say that you objectively ought to do something. So it started with why. And then building from that moral foundation, I was looking to daily actions that extended from that why. And that comes to law enforcement explorers, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, working out, maintaining my health, going to work to build a financial foundation for a family in the future, going and taking all the political action I have been to go and affect positive change for my posterity. Everything I do is rooted in a why. And if someone asks me why I do something, I can tell them that answer all the way down to the most core point. And that's how I've been able to efficiently allocate my time, is because I have a reason to do everything that I'm doing. And I have a lot of free time still, where people say, okay, you do a lot. I in the month of December binge watched the whole series of X-Files because my parents got me that for my birthday. So I watched all 11 seasons of the X-Files.
You are being raised right. You are being raised right.
We can jump into pop culture real quick, but that was a question I had, was when you're talking about, or my question was, what do you do for physical fitness and things like that? So I like that you brought that up. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because as you probably already know, like, health gets all of us in one kind of way, either young or old, or what we eat, our lack of exercise. What do you do to take care of your body in a little bit more detail?
So I've always been, well, my parents, since I was in the womb, have dedicated so much, I'd say, of their finances and so many of their resources to my health, where my parents sometimes sacrificed dinner so I could go and eat organic food. So I've always been on the healthier side. I think I'm a natural athlete, and I have a natural talent for athletics, and I have a natural kinesthetic awareness. So I'm on the healthier side by nature, but then by nurture, I've always been physically active since I was a kid. My parents ensured that that was the case. And then when I was bullied physically for the first time in second grade, my dad said, "Okay, we're going to go and teach you how to fight then." So he brought me down to my local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, and I began learning boxing, wrestling, kickboxing, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 7. And then once my bones developed sufficiently that they wouldn't be negatively impacted by heavy weightlifting, I began weightlifting as well shortly after the COVID pandemic began, right around when I was 13. I began light weightlifting, and I've tried to maintain those habits of both developing physical capability, so I'll be able to defend myself and others, but also maintaining my health through those activities. And that's what I allocate quite a bit of my time to weekly.
Excellent. Is that a good wrap up of you? We can get into some
does
fun
that answer
topics.
your question?
No, that was awesome. Yeah, and yeah, I could go on
Okay.
about what
Yeah,
what
I
to
mean, I'm
eat
sure
and
there's
stuff like that. I'm not perfect, but yeah, I'm improving every day is what I'm trying to do. Because after the COVID vaccine, I developed a neuromuscular illness, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Put me in the hospital, coma for a week, 6 months hospitalized. Every system, basically my immune system turned on me, thought my body was the enemy, destroyed every system, and it had to be kind of rebooted like a computer. And so, I'm on this crazy journey where I'm just gonna, eat as well as I can. Fitness, mind. I do a lot of brain stuff to get that neuro kind of connectivity going and everything like that. So I'm always interested in hearing kind of what other people are doing, and I just kind of take it all in and kind of push myself to my limits, and then I can kind of get back onto a normal level like where David's at.
Yeah. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that that was the case, but
Thank you.
I'm glad that you're
Normal
feeling
is
better, and I
subjective.
encourage. I'm proud to hear that you're still working and getting at it. That we're not dead until we're dead. So
That's
I'm glad to hear that
exactly
you're
right.
Amen.
Yeah. I could
Amen. Yes.
easily stay on the couch, stay fully, when I say medicated, the wrong kind, or at least not the right kind, and in a line with all the expert recommendations, and really just aligned with everything else. So yeah, it's been a journey, and you're going to go through your own journeys, and we all are on to just improve ourselves in the best way we can, given all the variables of life. But who wants to talk some pop culture?
Well, I was just going to say, we'd love to have you back on the show, Eddie, in a couple of months, even maybe longer after that, just to see where you're at and see where this journey is taking you. But before we switch gears, I love pop culture. I can't wait to get into whatever it is that Drew has for us. Real quick, one of the things I wanted to pick up on, because I'm seeing this. You're a very humble guy, so I'm gonna make you do some self promotion, because you said you walk through the doors and opportunities that are put in front of you, and you and I've got to hang out a little bit the last couple of weekends. So for the younger people that are listening that maybe are debating, do I get involved in politics? Do I not? What are some of the benefits? What are some of the opportunities that could be presented to me? Do you kind of want to give us a breakdown of like the last 2 or 3 weekends, the various different things that you've kind of had open doors to go do?
Yeah, I have had great opportunities to interact with members of congressional campaigns through my involvement at caucus and my BPOU. Everyone knows someone. It's about relationships. I've found that politics is quite a bit of politics is about relationships and someone who knows someone, just as is so much of the private sector, and success in general is a lot of success is based off of building successful relationships. So when I went to my BPOU, I met the chair who knew someone else on the exec board who knew someone on Eric Pratt's campaign, who I then got involved on his campaign. And then I went to convention where I met you on Eric Pratt's campaign, and then you invited me to a dinner following convention where I got to go and engage with the Hmong community in Minnesota, who I'd never really engaged with before, but I was very privileged to be there. And then I engaged with some higher ups in Minnesota politics, sitting down with the chair of the MNGOP at a dinner and briefly interacting with him over the course of a few hours, and then getting to interact with some other political actors and also some state senators. And I was very privileged to interact with them. And then they invited me to more events in the future to go and operate on another congressman's campaign, Paul Zhang. And that has been a very privileged experience. And usually, if you just say yes and walk through a door, another door will open. And I'd say especially if you do a sufficient amount of discernment to try to live in line with the path that God set out for you, I do think that the divine hand of providence can guide you along what you're meant to do. I do think that destiny is quite a plausible theory for the nature of the world. So I do think that if you're on the right track, you'll know, and doors will open for you. And I'd hope that is the case for me, for I've seen a lot of doors open for me. And I know we were going to hop to pop culture, but I told you about what I've done and kind of where I'm at presently. I'd be happy to tell you just briefly about like my future and what I'm thinking about doing in the future before we hop to pop culture, if that's something.
Yeah, let's hear it. You're absolutely
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm an admitted student to Hillsdale College now, so I will be attending there in Michigan in the fall. I'm very excited for that opportunity. I went to a summer program in 2025 prior to my applying, where I got to interact with 42 other prospective students who were selected for the accredited summer college course. And there I knew that Hillsdale was the place for me. So I'll be going there and attending in the fall, going for a political science and economics.
I think we might have lost him.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think we might have lost him. But
he's just doing so many amazing things that
yes,
YouTube.
I understand why his computer is burning out. I mean, do you see all the things he's involved in? How much RAM could he possibly have left on that laptop between college activities, politics, and everything else? You know what I mean?
RAM is a tough thing these days to come by, and it just gets overwhelmed.
Right, absolutely.
And it's
while he's jumping back on. Why don't you take us into some pop culture? But yeah, shout out to Eddie. If he comes back on, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
but
hopefully he can get back on.
It gives me so much hope for this state and just for the country in general to see young people like that getting activated and just jumping into things. I will say that's a brave kid, because he tried. I took him around the Hmong community, and he was open to trying all the food. And I did a little hazing, a little prank. I'm a little ashamed of it. So Eddie, if you hear this and you don't jump back on, I'm sorry for the.
Jump back on.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll let him load here for a minute, and then.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good now.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back. We were just talking about you're one of the bravest people I've met when it comes to trying new things. When I was taking you around the Hmong culture and their community and some of their events, and they fed us. They're very welcoming. That's one of the things I love about them. As a third world kid who didn't have food when I was a baby, any culture that's all about sharing food, I'm gonna have a kinship with you. But I was just telling Drew and the audience that I pulled a little bit of a prank on you at one of the banquets we went to, because you were like, "What's this food?" and "What's this food?" and I'm Peruvian. I don't know what spices are. Like, I loved eating spicy food, but if you ask me if something is spicy, I'm not going to be able to give you an honest answer. And what, Eddie, why don't you tell from your perspective what happened at this dinner? What did I do? What did I get you to try?
So we grabbed some rice as a portion of our dinner at this Hmong event, and they had, I believe it was pepper or chili sauce spice or additive that you would put onto your rice. And I briefly mentioned the story that one of my buddies who I work with down at Home Depot, he and I went down to Chipotle after our shift, and I ate a black bean absent all the other ingredients in a Chipotle bowl from Chipotle, and I ate that one black bean, and I reacted to it, and I said that it was very, very spicy, and it kind of burned my mouth. And my buddy who's Latino, he was like, "Man, that is the whitest stuff. That is the whitest shit I've ever heard." And I do not react well to spice. And then David told me to try the sauce and put it on my rice, put it on my dinner, and I did. And then I ended up consuming 6 bottles of water, as well as some herbal tea that one
It's
of
good
the
for hydration.
I know one of the Hmong ladies was very kind, and she prepared me tea to try to counteract the spice. But that was a very, very hot 45 minutes, or a very hot portion of the event where I couldn't taste anything else for the rest of the night.
I feel for you, Edward. Like I'm the same way. It's an acquired taste, and it's genetic. I'm sure. I'm my unlicensed opinion, I guess. But no, I'm with you. Like I had to acquire a lot of spice taste. It helped joining the army, and for one, the army defect, it's gonna have a little bit of everything. So I just ate whatever I could, and then you start going to people's houses, and they're like, "Try this, try that." And if you watch, hey, you said you binge watching, watch Landman, and so that's a good one. They got season 1 and 2 out, and you'll be able to relate to things with business and stuff like that. But then yeah, he goes to the Mexican families, and they're like, eat up, and he gets overwhelmed by the spice. But yeah, it's an interesting thing.
So that's what happened at that Hmong event, and yeah, that was just another fun and positive and unique experience that I was very privileged to have, following the involvement in the opportunities that were afforded to me by just going and saying yes to the doors that opened themselves for me. And then, yeah, to just wrap up, I'm going to Hillsdale, political science, economics, dual major, pre-law, and then I want to use those skills, and hopefully rely somewhat on the relationships I build there to come back to Minnesota and help this state to the best of my ability. And I'm going to do that through the arena of public service. And that's the future that I have reflected on and tried to practice discernment about, and that I think is the best path for me to pursue in my future. That's the summation of
That's
where I'm
awesome.
going.
Have that path for sure, and I'm sure you already know this, but be available to make course corrections all the way. Get off the path, try something else, jump back on, and then I would only say to really consider military service in some kind of capacity. There are so many different options out there right now. When it comes to that, you can do amazing things for even a short amount of time in the military. It's not all just being in the mud and shooting guns. While that can be fun, it's so intelligent nowadays when it comes to just the information out there, the communications. I know people who came in for 4 years in a communication type software type thing, and then they go work at IBM. They go work, and this was 20 years ago, and they walked into $200,000 a year jobs and be able to make a difference. But yeah, I've seen so many people that went down your path and then jumped into military, jumped back out, or kind of either way. But yeah, there are so many opportunities out there, and you could do some amazing things worldwide.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. How about some pop culture stuff?
Pop culture for
yes.
us.
Yeah.
I've been immersed in pop culture this past weekend. It was MegaCon. You know, if you're in the chat, or Edward, I don't know how much you're dabble into this stuff. You said X-Files. X-Files is a good one for sure, to learn the different episodic, especially when shows used to be 24, 20 episodes a year, and they take that kind of summer break and then jump back into the next season, and it's just like you live that with them. Nowadays it's a lot different. A lot of pop culture is infiltrated by politics or committee, I guess, creative writing teams by committee, and it kind of throws things out. We talked about Reacher and Alan Richardson and things like that. It's bringing down that whole escapism, that just a chance to look at things in a different perspective, David, like you said. But yeah, I went to MegaCon. This is my 3rd year in a row now, and the first year I went, I was still wheelchair bound, mostly pretty much hospital bound, and a lot of the people that I was listening to at the time that were speaking up against censorship, against top-down authority, and all these things, especially when it comes to medical freedom, they're like, hey, it's going to be tough, but we're going to make this event happen. We're going to have a meetup afterwards. And they're like, come down, make it to Florida. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. I used to travel for Army, for business worldwide. I can plan an airport route. I just have to get my resources ready, and I'm going to make it happen. So I just want to share, this is a panel that these guys, Geeks and Gamers, are on. And they're just guys like you and me, get up. They like different things like Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, Game of Thrones, X-Files, all of that. And they're talking about kind of the state of the thing. And they've been able to make their own website, make their own channels that are getting millions of subscribers. So let's hear that panel that I was at and got to listen to them talking about pop culture.
And you see how important pop culture is, and it is continuing to get bigger and bigger. And I think that we all understand that we've all seen different properties that we love and we've been interested in over the years be affected in different ways. So, I mean, Gary, what are your thoughts on where we are currently right now? We just had a couple of good things. One Piece season 2, I liked it. Hail Mary, I haven't seen it yet, but you guys have all praised it.
It's excellent. One Piece. I'm a huge One Piece fan.
So we are in a decent place right now.
Like within the first 2.5 months, we've got, in my opinion, anyway, we've gotten like 2 good shows and finally a good movie. First movie I've seen this year. No, I saw The Bride. Never mind, but we forget about that. No, I think well, I've got some news on that one. I got news for you. No, I think we're in a good space. I mean, if anybody thinks they're going to be like MAGA studios or anything like that, that's never going to happen. But if we achieve balance, which is the whole thing we've been asking for, just so we can enjoy escapism when life is hard, a dad dies, or you just had a bad day at work, or anything. Like escapism is good in small doses. You never want to bury your head in the sand, but it is healthy to have that, and it's obviously important to so many people. I hear that every day when we talk about the death of Star Trek, death of Doctor Who, death of Star Wars, and when we have something this year, when we have 2 good shows, any movie, in the first 2.5 months of a year, it would have taken us all year to get that last year. So I think things are changing. It's just never going to completely change. We talked about it last night. Disney's never going to change. And they can change, the CEOs all day long. But I think we're in a good space because some people in Hollywood have recognized they need to make money. Now, do they stick with that? I don't know. I did hear, sorry, Ryan, real quick. I'll say it here.
He already knows Ryan's angry about something.
This is breaking news, everyone. Stand by. Breaking news. I can't tell you who I heard this from, but it rhymes with Fatalis. that Starfleet Academy is done after season 2.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, these guys like you and me, they started channels. A lot of them, kind of kicked it off during the pandemic or a little bit before when they kind of saw these changes. The guy in the hat, well, a couple different hats, Eric July, he started his own comic. So he saw where Marvel, DC were going, and he's like, I'm going to start my own comic. And he's doing some amazing things, releases, it's kind of like the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, but he's made his own company with that, and it is selling millions of comics when it comes to this, or making millions of dollars, and it's just really doing great. Still willing to meet the fans. A lot of these guys follow me. Ryan Kinnell was a Navy guy, and he just started talking about this stuff. He reads all the books, like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, all these things. So he's just a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, Jeremy got his own business. Gary went to prison, had a tough life, turned it around, started a comic book business, and then you got Critical Drinker over here from over across the pond that he's just been absolutely crushing it. So all that to say is just we're in this really tough, time period. Like I said, like K-shaped recovery. You get to decide where you want to go with pop culture, with politics and everything, and it's going to be interesting. I compare it a little bit, mirrors how after World War II, we got this influx of all these different people with amazing life experiences, went into business, went into Hollywood, and kind of created some amazing things. And now we had the war on terror for the last, 20 some years. And we're going to see people that have built up character and then want to kind of put it out in whatever they're doing. So, what do you guys think? Where do you think pop culture is in this current kind of state of things, and what do you kind of see next, or what are you into?
I think we're definitely looking at, like they were talking about, a rebalance, right? And I think it's going to happen against Hollywood's will at this point, because I mean, if you look at all the stuff that's been put out in the last 3-4 years, right? People aren't engaging, right? If you're going to preach at me instead of entertaining me, right, we're not going to participate. Like, the only reason The Mandalorian lasted as long as it did was because they had this dynamic with Grogu and the Mandalorian, and then they started going off the deep end, and they have like Jack Black and Lizzo, and they start making it like girl boss mode. And the only thing that really kept them going even in the later seasons was they threw Luke Skywalker in there, and now all of a sudden they come back for a little bit, but you start preaching at them again and people leave. So I think and you have all these other studios popping up, like a movie I want to plug, and it's not pop culture. It's in the age of a lack of good rom-coms or just good romantic movies, dramas, whatever. Angel Studios and Kevin James, the guy from King of Queens, just put out a movie called Solo Mio. It's got my personal favorite musician in it, Andrea Bocelli. I'm not going to spoil. He does a cameo in there. It's great. I saw it, and I was the happiest human being on earth. But it's just a return to like those 90s. It's just a well-written a love story, right? About a guy, he goes overseas, right? Gets left at the altar for a destination wedding, and I won't give away the rest of the film, but that happens in like the first 5 minutes, so I'm not really spoiling anything. But then he gets to start his life over, right? And he goes and he gets to experience Italy, and he finds stuff happens. Just go watch the movie. But it's
all right.
But yeah, like we need stuff like that. Like, there's no preaching, right? There's no any of that stuff is in there. It's just a man starting over, and you're rooting for him because he's a good person, and politics don't play a role in it at all. And
what about you, Edward? What are you looking for in to turn something on, pop culture? Just what are you looking for outside of life?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier that I'm yearning for the day of the great rebalancing, where we can again just enjoy art and beauty absent negative charge, if that makes sense. And I would say I'm very happy to see that I went and saw Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, from I believe Radio Silence. That's the studio who produced it. I really enjoyed the film. It was just good, entertaining cinema. And of course, it has Catherine Newton in it. I have not failed to enjoy a single one of her movies. She's awesome. But I really enjoyed that film. And I hope to, yeah, I just hope that we can begin to overall bridge the divide, reverse the apathy, reverse the negativity, and kind of bring about a day where it's not MAGA studios and it's not LGBTQ plus studios. It's just people making art. And even if it wants to be a little bit more political or a little bit more politically biased in one direction, it's not so negatively charged. And I think that that's what I've grown discontent seeing in recent years, and that's what's made me happy seeing that reversal begin to come about. And this wasn't this wasn't some super huge film produced by Radio Silence, but I just went and I looked at it. I looked at the trailer. I was like, okay, this is a Catherine Newton movie. It's a cool horror comedy movie, more horror line movie, and I just enjoyed the film.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be my cornerstone of going forward is just feel like how do we tie things together and find common ground, and it's going to be those stories, whatever you're into, whatever genre, but a lot of them comes from that hero's journey, and I think a lot of us are on that right now in our own way. So yeah, appreciate you guys' input on my pop culture corner. David, you want to talk some chats in here, and then we'll get
absolutely.
On to
we got a couple of chats,
door.
but yeah. Eddie, thanks for that movie recommendation, by the way. I'm gonna have to check that out. I don't dive into a ton of horror, but every once in a while. So real quick, John, our day one, our MVP, relating back to our Justin Timberlake, Alan Richardson story. He threw into the chat. I have to say this, but celebrities need to take this word of advice. With great power comes great responsibility. Great Spider-Man quote. Speaking of pop culture, and they should conduct themselves better. And then after that, Milagros, this is one of our viewers from Peru. So guys, we're going international. And she just had some quick advice for us. If you can add a Spanish translator, we can understand and reach more people. That would be great. And hey, that's the dream. You know, having the show in multilingual, that is the dream. I am not opposed to that in the future, but appreciate those chats. And guys, if you're enjoying the show, you're enjoying the conversation, you know, what's a movie, a TV show, something that you've maybe seen recently that you think is great, that maybe doesn't preach at you and you were just able to just enjoy it and have a little escapism, you know, throw that in the chat. We'd love to see it. Drew,
Excellent.
I'm going to send it back to you for outros.
No, I'm going to send it right back to you. David, where can people find you? What do you want the people to know this week?
So you can find me at The Peruvian Gentleman on all of my social medias, TikTok, Facebook, X, Instagram, where I am on a regular basis doing what I can to rage bait some liberals and also challenge narratives and push back on the woke agenda and also share the things in pop culture that matter to me. R.I.P. Chuck Norris. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, next week a little bit because AK will have a ton to say. I already know that. But you can find me. I'm going to be involved in the local politics here in Minnesota. So if you're coming out to BPOUs, conventions, any of that sort of stuff, I will be there. We have a bunch of candidate debates coming up in the next few months that I'm very excited to go and attend and kind of make a more informed decisions about which candidate I'm going to be voting for in the future. And like I said in the last episode, you got to participate in your local politics if you want to see change.
Excellent. Edward, amazing show with you. Appreciate all that. Where do you want people to find you, and what do you want to leave the people with?
So you can find me on YouTube at just Edward Bokey. So it's at Edward Bokey, and then Real Edward Bokey on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And then I'm on Blue Sky and Truth Social under Edward Bokey. And then I'm on TikTok under Edward Bokey. And I guess I just want to leave the viewers with a statement that have the greatest positive impact within your circle of influence that you can, and endeavor every day to live in line with the truth and with God's good.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. I'm Drew Outstanding. You can find me on X at Drew Outstanding, is where I have a little bit more of the spicy type things. And on YouTube, I did finally modify my YouTube. It is at Operation Drew Outstanding. Operation Drew Outstanding. That's not accurate on the screen, but we'll update that later. So that's where I get into my adaptive sports, my consulting, my speaking endeavors that I'm currently on now as a retired Army non-commissioned officer. I'm figuring out my new path and doing a career switch now that I'm getting a little bit more recovered. There he is, Operation Drew. We'll work on that. But yeah, it's been a wild time. I'm hoping, praying for some snow in Colorado in a couple weeks. I will be there doing adaptive skis. I am on the mono ski this year, and I can't wait to represent the veteran community and do some amazing things on that. Our producer AM is in the background doing some awesome stuff. And shout out to AK Kamara, who's making big things happen over with RNC related stuff. So we miss him, and we'll see him next week. Thank you all. Like, share, subscribe, find us on everywhere that you can listen to this podcast. We are trying to be everywhere, and thank you for that. Well, salute out there. Have an outstanding week.
Culture warriors unchained, whether entertain you